Hello, welcome to May the 4th here at Near Future Industries. I am joined by an old friend and a incredibly creative creator, maker, builder of esoteric objects far and wide, many of them from the Star Wars universe. Dino Ignacio, how are you doing today, Dino?
Hey Tracy, thanks for having me today. Happy May the 4th to you.
Yeah, may
Um,
the 4th be with you always.
yeah, thank you. I want to apologize in advance. My bread machine is rolling in the background. I'm trying to make bread, so I'm going to try to mute myself between lines of dialogue
No
from my side.
problem. No problem. I think everybody who is joining us today probably understands that we are all in our safety bubbles in our homes and doing everything that we can to stay sane and make our own healthful foods and so on. Speaking of staying sane, is R2 helping you? Is he kind of a is he your emotional support droid?
Yes. I this is true when I first got this droid together, and even true now. There's nothing like seeing a droid in your living room to make you smile anytime. So yes, like I walk into this room in the morning and have my coffee, and I see him, and it never gets old. I've had him for like over 2 years now, and it's just like bringing me joy every time.
That's awesome. So for 2 years you built that. I remember seeing the initial photos on Facebook and and going back through those things. We met a long time ago working at GameSpot.com, and you've moved on to do a lot of creative work for different projects, game companies. Currently at Oculus. So we've always been a creative fellow, both career professionally and personally. It's been amazing to kind of see your journey with building going through and building with these communities and doing cosplay and everything else. One of the projects that I remember most vividly is your Graflex project, and you've given me some photos. I wanted to kind of ask you, how did you get involved? Like, what was the first kind of thing that led you to it? I mean, obviously, we've got our stories of the moment we saw Star Wars, but what was the first kind of hook that pulled you into the community and got you going on building?
For that one, I remember just always wanting that artifact, right? So there's a long way around to get to my point, but I think most other people who are fans of things, whether they're fans of movie stars or sports, they have artifacts from reality that they can hold on to. But when you're a fan of sci-fi, and in this case Star Wars, there's really no physical artifacts that can bring you to those worlds outside of the props or the toys, right? And so being able to create one of these things was like a way to connect to the fandom. And so I remember just like going through forums and just getting deep into the rabbit hole of like how would you make one? I knew I could buy one if I wanted to, but there was some joy to actually building one. And so I found a kit that you could buy. It's basically a metal hilt, and I remember just holding this thing for days, and just the satisfaction of holding this artifact, the joy of just having it in your hands. My wife would make fun of me because I would like hold on to it by the side of by my while I'm in the bed, falling asleep with it in my hand. Pretty horrible. But anyway, it
Just
started.
amazed at this creation that you've made. Like, here it is. Here's the real thing in my hand that I imagined so many times as a kid.
Yeah, and even at that point, it was just like a basic kit. It had no lights, it had no soldering, no electricity in it, no electronics. I mean, I just the basic kit, and I just was so in love with it. And then from there, within weeks, I just learned I could go deeper. I could, order some soundboards for it, a speaker, and then lighting, and then learning about like LEDs and soldering, and just like building this project. Um, I didn't know this till after. I could have started with simpler soldering projects. I just didn't know any better. This was a real test of my ability to fit like tiny things into tubes.
I'm
It wasn't
on screen right now. I have an image of the small circuit board, and those are really fine wires. Uh,
yeah.
how many times did you have to redo that when you first did
Oh
it?
gosh, I think I must have redone it like 3 or 4 times over and over just to make it fit, and also just like changing out and ordering thinner and thinner wires to make it fit better. There were like amazing people online that were helping me. This one guy in particular, Matthew Dully, had this YouTube channel that just taught you how to do this, and I would watch his videos over and over, and eventually like befriended the guy over Facebook, and just like asked him more stuff. Like he was a great mentor. a lot of other people as well. But just like, building this thing was just a real joy, to finally have it in my hands and ignite it for the first time. This other guy that I got my soundboard from, his name's Nigon. He was so helpful over the internet as well. It was a real joy, and so that opened me up to the whole community of builders out there. It was really, really fun.
That's awesome. It's there's a lot of depth to the communities of builders for the Star Wars universe too, which kind of leads me to the other thing. So you are a member of the 501st Legion as well. How long
Yes,
did
I
that
am.
take from the point where like you started building stuff and you're like, you know what, I'm gonna join up, I'm gonna become a part of this process, do the charity appearances and all that stuff.
It's an interesting story. It's a little bit backwards because as early as 1998 was when I built my first stormtrooper outfit, and I should have given you a photo of that, but I just didn't have the confidence to join the club. So my first one, I was much younger. I was like in my early 20s. I built my first armor, and I just um, was thinking about all this stuff. But then I fast forward to 2015. I joined the 501st back in San Francisco. I joined the Golden Gate Garrison, as an Imperial officer, and then the year later, I built my Stormtrooper. A lot of it, like built meeting the whole community. A lot of it was like really amazing because it's like, you don't realize how deep the fandom goes for some other people, and you thought you were nerdy enough, and you meet other people much nerdier, and you're like, oh, I've found my home now, I've found my family. It was like a great gateway drug into like meeting other people who love this stuff.
Sure. And then there's one with you and your daughter as well.
Yeah,
We'll talk a little more
yeah,
about that, but sharing the passion for cosplay and going to the events and just being a part of the community with your family is always awesome.
it
Um,
is. Yeah, it's been great to have her around, and just like like read. And it's not just Star Wars. I've realized, I'm rediscovering some of the shows that I loved as a kid with her,
uh-huh.
and just like igniting this new fire. For example, we were just watching Death Becomes Her, or watching, what was it? Oh, the first Predator. I watched Predator with her.
Oh
Um,
wow.
yeah, it's which is a little gnarly, but she was cool with it. And then she's really into like scarier shows, and so like having someone to watch. Like right now, we're watching what's that show? Tales from the Loop on Amazon, which is a
Right.
little bit on the side, but she's loving it. So yeah, it's great to have a nerdy kid around to enjoy these things with.
Well, let's talk about that. I was gonna save that for last, but I mean, while we're talking about the subject, um, you guys did some fabrication of some very unique items, and I think, and here's something that I wanted to ask you about too. This is actually more of a personal question, maybe off the topic of Star Wars a little bit, and more related to directly to creativity as a whole. Because since I've known you, I think that there's been a number of things that I've seen where you're very good at recognizing like a theme or and I hate the word meme because it just means thought, but there's the people have used the term zeitgeist or the pulse or whatever else, but I from everything from Bart is evil, which is a whole other topic, right? But like, uh, you know, I don't think people realize we're talking with a real internet celebrity here. People, you recognize that. But Dino, like you're very good at I think crafting ongoing narrative from pop culture items. Like you have a little bit of a Warhol pop art, sensibility about you that takes things and puts story into things that wasn't there before. And so that point is what gives you the ideas? Like what kind of gives you inspiration on things like that? Specifically on this piece where you worked on the cosplay with your daughter to do Jyn Erso after Rogue One. What was kind of the inspiration? Did you talk with her about it? She was like, "I want to do this," or were you like, "Here's some story ideas that you can do," and giving them out to Leia's is a very inspired thing.
Um, First off, thank you for thinking that I'm somehow clever enough to figure out these things. For like every 30 things I try, one of them resonates, right? So, but
Right.
anyway, this in this specific instance, my daughter, we were trying to figure out like, well, what would she dress up as at the next Comic Con, or sorry, rather celebration for this one. And Jyn Erso was just a new character coming out of Star Wars, and she was pretty cool character, and my daughter she the character resonated with my daughter, and at the same time, tragedy struck, right? So Carrie Fisher died right before this event, and locally here in Seattle, we had no, even before that. So Carrie had not passed yet, and the movie was going to come out, and then I just had this bright idea of like using the laser cutter at the office to make some Death Star plans. I just It just crossed my mind like that would be really cool to give out to kids at the premiere, because we were going to be trooping as stormtroopers and whatnot at Rogue One, and so I thought let's make a few of these things, give them away. And so that's the genesis of the idea. We were just looking for something to give away at the event. And then weeks later, Carrie Fisher passes, and we decided, well, maybe we can make ones and dedicate them to Carrie and then give him out at Celebration. And that's what we did. And so, Harley dressed up as Jyn Erso and gave her a whole stack of these. And we looked for every Leia we could find through the 3 days or 3 days that we were there. And we gave them out to all the Leias. And the last one we left at there was I think it was a prop shop. Like one of the booths had one of Leia's outfits, that one. And we left the last one there because people had been leaving a shrine in front of it anyway. We thought we'd leave one there. And it was a really poignant moment. We had lots of fun. This was it was a great experience for me and Harley.
It's awesome. No, that I just, when I saw you guys doing that, I thought, wow, how neat was that? And something so different, because I think one of the things about cosplay is that you're kind of looking for ways to make an impact that's your own. And like that's where you end up with the mashups and everything else, right? And then having that story element, and I think I mean, obviously from all the photos and everything else, it definitely resonated a lot because of that that sense of grief and everything else, right? So it's and everybody, and it also allows you to interface with all of the other cosplayers in a way that's very unique, right? And you get to meet them and discuss it with them.
Adam Savage had this really, really good TED talk about cosplay. I don't know if you saw it, but he was talking about that, where cosplay is really just more than just like putting on a costume. It's embodying a role and interacting with an audience or other characters to fulfill that contract of like, hey, this is my role, that's your role, let's interact. And that play is what makes it really special. And that's really exciting to me, right? So when we put on a costume, it's not just we're just putting it on. We fulfill a role, whether it's for a child looking at you from a hospital bed and making them happy that they're meeting a stormtrooper, or just like going to a convention and cheering up some random stranger seeing Lando or like Princess Leia in real life. So it's a really fun process.
That's awesome. And then speaking of Lando, so right around the time that the Lando movie come out, there was this particular gem as well.
Yeah. So this was the following celebration, and we were like, what else can we do? We've done the Leias, let's try something else. And so we decided to dress Harley up as Kira. And then we gave away 3D printed dice to all the Han Solos we saw at Celebration this last year. That was really fun as well. Yeah, she and what's great about this trip was that we figured out the schedule for when all the costumers were meeting for photo shoots, and so we got her in a photo, all the Kiras. She was really happy to be part of that shot.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Probably than the Hans and the Landos and all the other folks from the movie. That's great. That's awesome. And so I guess one more question about that is, what are your concerns as a parent? Like when you guys go into the environment, I mean, it's a very public environment. There's lots of people from all over for very different reasons. And when you go in there with your daughter and she's very young, and what are your concerns? What are your thoughts about that that community? And I've always found the Star Wars community to be pretty safe and welcoming. But as a parent, what are your thoughts? What would you tell other parents to think about?
Yeah, no, I mean you're right. First off, the Star Wars community is a lot, from at least from my perspective. The people that go to Celebration are really, great human beings, right? So I think it spawns from the fact that the community is built on a movie about hope and friendship and good winning versus evil and teamwork, and so it brings out a certain personality type, I think. So overall, it's a much better experience than say if I just threw her into Comic Con, which we go to as well. Um, but the other thing, and I'll be honest with you, maybe if you ask me in a few more years, I would have a different opinion. But right now, she's a little 8-year old. There's not much issue yet. But maybe when she's in her teens, it'll be a different story. We haven't crossed that yet. But luckily, it's been a very accommodating and safe environment to bring a kid to. Um, but we'll see. Let's talk again in a few years.
All right, definitely. So I wanted to kind of a couple more things, and I know that you're probably hungry, and it's at the end of the day, and you got some bread cooking in the background there.
Um,
So talk about your droid builds, because over the last few years, I've seen you guys have been building a bunch of droids. You have the R2 unit behind you, which is clearly a successful build, and we've got a lot of photos of that as well.
yeah,
What made you kind of embark on a R2 build?
I've always wanted one, but never had the skills nor the mentorship to do it. But again, that this is one of the benefits of being part of the 501st is that you're surrounded by people who are part of the other clubs. And so I met a lot of like people who have started to do this ahead of me. One in particular, Ian Martin, is my main mentor in this build. He's just been like I was at the right place at the right time because a few years ago, this was like 2017 is when I started building this. Other people were starting to build theirs, and he had already built one, and he was trying to help others build theirs. And so went over to his house, used a CNC machine, cut up a bunch of like R2 parts, and started to assemble the wood frame of it. And from there, just started learning how to do all the other things. Again, I couldn't have done this without all these amazing other people that were able to teach me how to do these things. And then since then, I've just started to just add more stuff to the droid over time. I've gotten my own CNC machine now, and so I'm trying to build the drink tray from Return of the Jedi out of wood. So that's my new project for him.
Is there like a pattern for something like that for like the drink tray? So is it something that the community's already created, and then you can kind of build these add-ons as you go?
Yes, so that's the awesome thing about like a lot of these build communities. The R2 Builders Club, most especially, it's a lot of open source stuff, and people share what they build. So the history of the R2 Builders Club is that around the late '90s, um, Lucasfilm let the club have access to a lot of the original blueprints for R2D2, with a goal that hey, just build your own with one strict rule, which is that you can't make money out of this. You'll never be able to buy a full droid from somebody else, or you'll never be able to um, have a droid come to your party and pay them money, right? So it's always going to be for charity or for free. Like we're not allowed to make money out of these droids, and so which is a very good
Ah,
rule. And so yeah, the whole community is built on that. A lot of people just build stuff and sell them at cost and share blueprints. If anyone innovates on a new thing, they share what they build, and so it's an amazing community of sharing people. Yeah, it's been a great club to be part of.
that's
And
awesome.
with the advent of 3D printing, that droid on the right, that BB-8, is all 3D printed, and the one on the left, I think, is partly 3D. The one
Does
in the
it does the
middle was
does the
mine.
BB-8 the one in the middle is yours without paint, or
Yeah, that's what he looked like early on.
that's awesome. And does the BB-8 like does it have that like floating? Does the head unit move independently of the body like the normal?
does. They figured that out. So the
That's
builders have figured
crazy.
that out. The head has a bunch of magnets underneath it,
Hmm.
and also some bearings, and so it's connected to the body with a magnet, and then in the body there's some weights to make sure that the motor is on the bottom and it can roll around and can spin and do all the things the one in the movie does.
Um, all right. So here's a group of your droids.
Yeah, that's a Pacific Northwest club. So that's everyone from the Portland and Seattle areas just hanging out. It's a great community of people.
Apologies.
No worries. Yeah. So and what you can see here, there's a bunch of like, oh, this is interesting. I I have a friend who works at Skywalker Ranch, and I sent him a couple of panels for my R2 and asked him if he could like give them to Ben Burtt to sign. I'd sent Ben Burtt a few things like I think I sent him one of the Death Star plans and a bunch of coins that I made, and wrote him a letter about how much, and truthfully how much I idolized him as a kid, and how I remember seeing all those animatics that he was making for Return of the Jedi with a bunch of toys and all the sounds he was generating for lightsabers and blasters, and knowing that this is the kind of world I want to live in the future, and this is the kind of work I want to do in my and when I get older. And then he wrote back and signed the panels for me, so these are now in my R2D2.
It's awesome, man. That's awesome. Um,
Yeah, he's
so your R2D was finished. You got signed panels from Ben Burtt installed in it, making it like one like a super true artifact. And then your next big project is, of course, the companion piece to
yeah,
R2
yeah.
C3PO.
I'm starting to build C3PO. Yeah, so I started printing
Oh,
them.
you have what's in your hand. All right,
As right now.
that's awesome. And is that custom fitted for you to be able to wear as C3PO?
So no, actually, so that's the file directly from Thingiverse, and it's actually a little small for me. So I'm printing another one that's just slightly bigger to fit my head. This fits, but it's not comfortable. It could be bigger. Yeah.
Is it? Do you think? Well, I mean, Anthony Daniels though is he's really a very small. He's a very small frame person to
Yeah.
start with. Like, and famously they said how uncomfortable the outfit was originally, and it was probably a lot lighter weight plastic, I think, than the 3D printed material. But I mean, are there ways to make it more comfortable, like padding or things like that?
Maybe a little bit, but the way these helmets are for C3PO is that if you have like an inch in front of your mouth to the helmet, or to the face of the mask, you're lucky because there's just not a lot of space in there. He probably didn't have a lot of padding, if at all, in the real one. I met the man years ago at EA when I was working there. He used to come to EA Redwood Shores for presentations way back when, and I met the guy, and he's about my height. And yeah, he's not a very tall guy, and yeah, so I think I'm probably still the right build to make a proper one.
Wow, and there's the chest plate as well. And there's a lot of
Yeah,
like
it's
there's a lot of hard angles that you really can't. There's not a lot of motion in the
no,
shoulders and so on.
it's very limiting. Yeah, it's interesting. Like I have a friend who built one before, and he was saying that not to um, not to discount all the acting that Anthony Daniels does in the suit, but the armor, or sorry, rather the suit actually kind of forces you to move that way. The angle of the shoulders, where the arms are, how the head moves. That's as much as you can do with it. So it's like, yes, he's doing all those motions, but you can't help but do those motions because the extent, and that's the range of your motion. All to say that it comes that almost like the costume is what generates the acting, which is an interesting thing.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, because it's kind of like the whole allure, or the look of the way that C-3PO moves is so related to the way that it was built. And but that's actually the reality of something like robotics, right? The joints in the robotic armatures and stuff those are the limits of the movement for a real robot as well.
Right, right,
Um,
right, right.
All right, so a couple last questions before I'll let you go to dinner. Thank you so much for spending your time with us tonight, and tell us all about your creations and all of the ways that you've kind of embraced the Star Wars fandom and shared your passion. What one, if you could, you've done the Stormtrooper thing, Imperial Officer. I've seen you in the Dagobah Luke outfit, I think, at one
Yeah,
point.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
if you could be any type of character, any archetype, if you could take on any life in the Star Wars universe, what would you be? What would you do?
Oh, oh wow. Gee, like something that I haven't done yet that I want to be, right? So, honestly, I'd love to be Vader. I don't have the height for it, but that would be really cool. I'd love a Vader. Are you asking what costume or what I would like to be in that universe?
What would you like to be? Like I say we talk about projects, but like if you could, so earlier I was talking to somebody, we were talking about like what would you do? Like what would your job be, or like what type of role would you play? And I think we talked about it. Would you be a part of the Empire? Would you be a part of the
Oh,
rebellion? But and then we started talking about, would you be, would you go and be like a smuggler? Like, there's a lot of predefined
yeah,
jobs in the Star Wars universe, and there's some that we've never even seen on screen. So the question
yeah,
is, what do we? Yeah.
yeah. No, I think a smuggler sounds really fun. I'd love to just like be able to explore on my own and just like do some do some less than legal stuff out there. That would be kind of cool. But also, I would love to be from Coruscant, the center of everything, and just like see all that stuff happening. Maybe, I mean, he's not a very popular character, but that guy, I'm kind of I'm kind of like I'm regretting thinking this, but I think his name was Dax. That four-armed guy who ran
Yeah,
the
the
diner.
diner host. Yeah, the guy, the chef at the diner. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Just like hang out in the diner and like have these like robot restaurant attendants with me and just hang out and meet some people all day at the center of the universe. That would be kind of cool.
That would be kind of cool. Yeah, it'd be like the guy that everybody looks to for, for hospitality and greeting, and you'd be
Yeah,
able to see. And he's the rumor monger as well. He kind of tells them stories about where people are coming and going, and he kind of sees
yeah.
everything. And he's right at the spaceport too, right? That's the whole reason he sees everything kind of happening around him.
So
Um,
you know more about him than I do. He's pretty cool.
I remember and I remember too, like when that movie came out too. I was like, oh wow, they're like, it was a new character, and every time there's a new character on screen in the Star Wars universe, right? Everybody, all the fans are like, oh wait, who's this going to be, and what's their role going to be, and so yeah, I
Yeah,
remember him pretty clearly. I mean, he was so different too because it was like it was so analogous to real things. Like it was, you could see that person existing in our world, so it was a neat
yeah,
connection. That's
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
That's cool.
Maybe him. Or I mean, I especially like I don't know what it is about seedy little bars, but I'm a big fan of Ponda Baba. I have a costume of him, but yeah, I'd like to be him, just hanging out in Tatooine, just
Before or
drinking my
after
drink.
his arm has been severed.
Probably before the severed arm. That would be. I mean, that would be better.
And
How about yourself?
if you could have
You've
the
given this
foresight, is not mess with the Jedi's at all. Just
right. Don't
leave them
mess with the
be.
Jedi's.
Yep, simple that.
Did you give this thought? Who would you be, or what would you be?
Earlier I said I would be a wing pilot, and I love a wings. I think that they're the coolest aircraft in the Star Wars universe or spacecraft. If I had to pick like a job, like a real career, not just be like a part of one of the militaries, there's so many options, and a lot of what we see on screen revolves around commerce or food or just the working things. But honestly, like even if I put the stipulation that I couldn't say that you would just be able to be a force user, because if you were a force user, everyone wants to have magic powers, right? But
Yeah.
I think even if I wasn't a force user, I'd probably be somebody that was interested in it. So I might be like, and we have like Dr. Aphra in the extended universe now with the comics. I probably would be somehow related to that. Like I would probably be an archaeologist or historian, trying to travel around to the different planets and look for things that were lost in the old Republic and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
I think
I can
that's how I
see.
would find my life.
Yeah, it's kind of what you do.
It-
You research technologies and share information. That's kind of what you do. So
Yeah, I mean, it kind of is, right? So yeah, so I think it'd be neat to go back, and especially with something that has all of those eons of history that had been lost and recycled, and there's things that they don't even realize they have access to, that even above and beyond hyperspace travel and everything else, and lightsabers, right? So who
yeah,
knows? But yeah, but thank you very much for spending some time with us tonight, Dino, and it's always good to
yeah.
talk to you, my friend, and all the best to you and all of your creative projects.
Thank you for letting me nerd out. This was really fun.